This is a piece of racing history here in Daytona Beach. The last part of famed NASCAR mechanic Smokey Yunick's garage was gutted by fire tonight and is being called suspicious.
Smokey Yunick's garage was legendary, a place rumored to be filled with outlaw engines and secret inventions that NASCAR wanted erased. But when the doors finally opened after his death, what fans found was far more extraordinary than myths or shadows of conspiracy. It wasn't just rare tools or collectible parts. It was a treasure trove of radical engines that broke rules and redefined efficiency, alongside patents and journals that exposed an inventor wrestling against a system slow to change. Could one man's hidden workshop have held the key to reshaping motorsports and fuel technology? The garage unlocked after death. Smokey Yunick's garage was shrouded in legend, imagined by many as a secret vault stuffed with outlaw engines and cutting-edge inventions that racing officials desperately wanted hidden. Yet, when the doors finally swung open after his death in 2001, the reality was far removed from conspiracy or mystery. What greeted fans and family was not a clandestine laboratory, but a working craftsman's space frozen in time, filled with both ordinary tools and extraordinary relics. Instead of a vault, the famous Daytona Beach workshop welcomed crowds for a public sale, a place where history and hemming machines met side by side. The public sale, held weeks after Smokey's funeral, was a momentous occasion. Hundreds of fans traveled from distant states like Maine and Oregon, hoping to snag a piece of racing history. Hundreds of items, from $5 hammers to $20 boxes of parts, were laid out for anyone to treasure. The venue itself was unassuming, not the secretive fortress many had expected, but a modest building on North Beach Street, with decades of untold stories tucked inside. These artifacts reflected Smokey's practical nature and his desire to avoid locking away his legacy in inaccessible museums. Smokey had passed away after battling leukemia, and by then, his legendary garage had been closed for some years. Originally opened in 1947, the shop had built a reputation for housing some of the most inventive and sometimes controversial creations in motorsports history. However, by 1987, Smokey decided to shut its doors, feeling that the craft of good mechanics was fading. That closed chapter remained untouched for years, preserving a snapshot of a bygone era until the estate began sorting through the contents. Far from a mystery vault, what people found was a genuine craftsman's space. Dust-covered hubcaps rested near stacks of exhaust pipes, and in the midst of it all was a manual typewriter Smokey had used frequently. Among these relics was something far more intriguing: a hand-built engine boasting the extraordinary claim of achieving 80 miles per gallon. Offered at $20,000, it symbolized the blend of the ordinary and the revolutionary that filled the garage. Smokey's widow, Margie Yunick, described the sale as a first-class junkyard, encapsulating both the clutter and the real value hidden within. For Smokey, these tools and parts were meant to be used, not locked behind glass for wealthy collectors. This reflected his lifelong mission of rescuing neglected machines and restoring them to working life, a philosophy carried forward by his family. The proceeds from the sale were intended to fund a foundation dedicated to continuing his spirit of innovation in motorsports. The public sale famously contrasted with what many expected of Smokey's legacy. Instead of secretive auctions or elite collectors quietly acquiring forbidden blueprints, loyal fans and everyday enthusiasts had open access to the man's work. Racing insiders referred to him as NASCAR's wildest cheater, a nickname earned not from dishonesty, but from his creative use of legal gray areas in rulebooks. This spirit of pushing boundaries without crossing into outright fraud earned him legendary respect. Even after the sale and the later sale of the property in 2003, the garage itself faced a somber fate. The final building was destroyed by fire in 2011 under suspicious circumstances. Yet by then, Smokey's lasting legacy had already been dispersed into garages, museums, and personal collections across the country. What truly mattered was no longer confined to a building, but alive in the items and the stories they carried. Fans have asked whether they would have driven across the nation for a $5 hammer or waited for an engine that promised exceptional mileage and power. The answer reveals the allure of Smokey's life's work. Objects ordinary on the surface, but extraordinary by their history and innovation. This garage, once thought to be a secret fortress, instead became a beacon of ingenuity and unfettered creativity. The ordinary workshop hid extraordinary machines that would soon become the cornerstone of a deeper story about innovation and legacy. From craftsman's shop to innovation hub. Behind the clutter of wrenches, hubcaps, and old signage, Smokey's garage was a window into the mind of one of racing's greatest inventors. The space resembled more a craftsman's beloved workshop than a high-tech lab. Yet this was precisely where groundbreaking ideas had taken shape. The mixture of ordinary and extraordinary created a unique atmosphere blending tradition with radical thinking. Each tool and part represented decades of hands-on experience and relentless experimentation. The humble $5 fender hammer, sitting next to boxes filled with race car parts, told stories of countless tire changes, repairs, and adjustments made under the pressure of competition. Smokey's talent did not lie only in flashy inventions, but in his mastery of the basics, a craftsman's respect for the worn edges of his tools. This grounded approach enabled him to dream big while understanding every nut and bolt. An iconic item among all this was a working 50s GMC dealership sign, a reminder of the era when Smokey first rose to prominence. It symbolized the link between the golden age of American motorsports and the future-shifting technologies he created in that same space. The continuity between past and present was tangible in these artifacts. Smokey's well-used manual typewriter also survived, a testament to his hands-on involvement in documenting ideas, drafting patents, and chronicling his work. He was not only a mechanic and inventor, but also a thinker who valued recording his experiments and insights. These written records later proved crucial in understanding the breadth of his contributions. Among the most fascinating was an engine claimed to deliver 80 miles per gallon, reflecting Smokey's commitment to efficiency as much as speed. It was a reminder that his innovations were never one-dimensional. Such designs pushed the boundaries of what engines could do, often well ahead of their time. While this particular engine was priced beyond the reach of many, it symbolized the garage's blend of the attainable and the visionary. The atmosphere was that of a man who treasured not only invention, but the act of making and remaking. Smokey spent much of his life rescuing forgotten machines, restoring and improving them instead of viewing technology as disposable. This workshop was less a static museum and more a living testament to hands-on innovation and the ethos of craftsmanship. According to his family, Smokey had no desire for his work to be hidden away in private collections or locked behind velvet ropes. Instead, he wanted his tools and parts used, owned, and cherished by people who would continue the spirit of creativity and experimentation. This openness was reflected in how the public sale was organized and carried out. The legacy hidden in a craftsman's shop was about to reveal its deepest secrets. The hot vapor engine. Breakthrough. At the heart of Smokey's legacy lay the hot vapor engine, one of his most extraordinary but overlooked achievements. While most modern engines rely on computer management of fuel and ignition, Smokey's design took an entirely different path. He used heat itself to enhance combustion efficiency, pioneering what is technically called adiabatic combustion. This approach produced astonishing power and exceptional fuel economy decades before it became a mainstream goal. Smokey's breakthrough was built around a modified 2.5-liter Pontiac Fiero Iron Duke 4-cylinder engine. The stock version of this engine delivered roughly 90 horsepower and achieved about 35 highway miles per gallon. By contrast, Smokey's carbureted hot vapor variant pushed out 250 horsepower and 250 pound-feet of torque, while still managing 51 miles per gallon on regular 93-octane gasoline. The car could sprint from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 6.5 seconds, a remarkable performance for its size and time. The secret was in how Smokey harnessed waste heat from the exhaust and cooling systems to boil the fuel-air mixture before combustion. An exhaust-driven turbine, called a homogenizer, sat beneath the carburetor, mixing and vaporizing the fuel as it passed through a wrapped manifold heated to over 450 degrees Fahrenheit. This complete vaporization allowed the engine to run at an extremely lean air-to-fuel ratio exceeding 20:1. Remarkably, these performance claims were not mere bravado. Detroit labs and original equipment engineers verified Smokey's results, confirming that the engine met the strict emissions standards of the 80s entirely without the use of computers or electronic controls. This was a feat that challenged conventional wisdom and the automotive status quo of the era. This core idea dated back to the 50s, when Ralph Johnson, a Holley carburetor expert and General Motors dyno technician, collaborated with Smokey to push combustion efficiency beyond known limits. They figured out how to safely operate at high exhaust temperatures around 2,250 degrees Fahrenheit to control the hydrogen burn, allowing leaner and cleaner combustion. Johnson later remarked that the car never ran better than right before critical failure. Multiple prototypes were built using this hot vapor concept, including engines in a Buick 3-cylinder, a Ford, and a Dodge Omni. Each of these vehicles delivered fuel economy over 45 miles per gallon, while producing nearly 2 horsepower per cubic inch. Near-production projects included an S10 truck conversion and licensing deals, but those eventually stalled. The hot vapor engine technology ultimately faltered due to concerns about durability, high manufacturing costs, expensive legal battles, and a resistance within the automotive industry, often described as a "not invented here" syndrome. Yet physical examples of these engines survived, treasured by Smokey's family and enthusiasts. 4 such engines remain with his daughter, Trish Yunick Brown, while collector Tony Allers acquired running examples and restored a hot vapor Fiero replica that he drove regularly. This vehicle was donated on Christmas Day, 2009, to the Don Garlits Museum of Drag Racing, preserving a working example of Smokey's radical engineering for the public to see. As the garage's ordinary tools gave way to revolutionary machines and concepts, it became clear that Smokey's legacy was more profound and lasting than most imagined. Patents that challenged the industry. Smokey Yunick was not only a hands-on mechanic, but also a meticulous inventor who protected his ideas through multiple patents. Between 1978 and 1996, records from the United States Patent and Trademark Office show that he secured at least 9 patents covering a range of automotive innovations. These patents documented everything from fuel conditioning to oil change systems and engine testing methods, proving the depth and seriousness of his engineering work. His filings were not casual experiments, but carefully crafted solutions aimed at pushing the entire industry forward. Among the most significant were several patents related to his hot vapor engine technology. Between 1984 and 1988, Smokey patented apparatuses and operating methods that directly supported the air-fuel mixing and combustion processes he refined in his Fiero engine. These legal protections ensured that the innovative work taking place in his garage had a solid foundation beyond mechanic boldness. It had engineering legitimacy that could not be dismissed outright. The patents eventually entered the public domain, allowing future engineers to study his ideas freely. Other patents touched on more practical innovations, including a pressure vent design filed in 1978, an oil change system patented in 1991, and engine testing methods granted in 1994. These were small but vital parts of the whole, illustrating how Smokey approached every detail of automotive performance and maintenance from multiple angles. His inventions reflected ongoing problem-solving driven by years of hands-on experience and technical insight. Yet, It wasn't just technical challenges he confronted. Smokey's patents silently challenged the hand of racing sanctioning bodies and automotive bureaucracies that were slow or unwilling to accept new ideas. The legal documentation of his inventions stood as a formal record of continuous advancement, even as some of his best concepts were ignored or rejected. This tension between innovation and institutional resistance would mark much of his career. The patents also reveal Smokey's efforts to balance performance with safety, an aspect often overshadowed by stories of outlaw engines and rule bending. His vision extended to creating safer racing environments through engineered solutions. The documents show a man who didn't just want faster cars, but better, more responsible machines. Despite these recorded innovations, many of Smokey's patents were met with skepticism or opposition within the racing and automotive communities. The industry's "not invented here" syndrome often hindered adoption of his concepts. Legal complexities and high production costs also contributed to stalling projects, underscoring how ahead of their time his ideas truly were. Some innovations would only gain recognition years later, after being popularized in other forms or adopted by different racing leagues. The seeds planted by Smokey's patents helped pave the way for safety equipment and mechanical practices that are now standard in motorsports worldwide. They serve as lasting testaments to his relentless drive to improve the sport and its technology. His daughter and family have preserved these patents as part of his enduring legacy, showing that even without widespread immediate acceptance, Smokey's technical contributions continue to inspire engineers and racers alike. The published patent documents stand as proof that his workshop was far more than a place of tricks. It was a birthplace for ideas that could have changed automotive history. Smokey's resolve to protect drivers and improve speed would lead him into some of his most defining confrontations with the racing establishment. Safety and aerodynamics innovations. Smokey Yunick's impact was not limited to engines and inventions. The realm of safety and aerodynamics was another frontier where he became a pioneering force. In 1961, he introduced pneumatic air jacks designed to lift stock cars instantly during pit stops, a practice that revolutionized race strategies. Despite the obvious advantage and ingenuity, NASCAR rejected this innovation, considering it inappropriate for its events at the time. This early rejection highlighted the hesitance of racing officials to embrace ideas that challenged tradition or altered the sport's status quo. The following year, Smokey pushed boundaries in aerodynamics by mounting a massive wing over the engine of Jim Rathman's Siemens Vista Special Watson Roadster for the Indianapolis 500. This wing generated unprecedented downforce, dramatically improving cornering speeds and offering a glimpse of the future of racing car design. However, the wing created too much drag on the straights, leading the United States Auto Club to ban it swiftly. Ironically, decades later, aerodynamic wings became standard equipment in major racing series like Can-Am, Formula One, and IndyCar. Perhaps most tragically, Smokey's efforts to improve driver safety faced the greatest resistance. In the early 80s, long before the introduction of modern, safer barriers, he devised a primitive soft wall concept made by sandwiching old tires between heavy wooden panels to absorb crash impacts. This design aimed to reduce the brutal consequences of high-speed crashes against concrete walls, which NASCAR racers had been forced to endure. Yet this idea was not adopted, leaving drivers vulnerable for many more years. Smokey persisted and eventually formalized this safety concept with a patent filed in 1996, detailing a racetrack crash barrier designed to better absorb impacts. His design was a precursor to the safer barrier technology finally implemented decades later, which has since saved countless lives. The delay in adopting such safety innovations underscores the larger theme of Smokey's career. He invented solutions before the industry was ready to embrace them. His safety designs, like his engine patents, revealed a visionary approach to motorsports that balanced innovation with humanity. He genuinely cared about preventing tragedies on the track and refused to accept the status quo when lives were at risk. Despite repeated rejections, these ideas gradually influenced the evolution of racing safety equipment. From pneumatic jacks to aerodynamic wings and impact-absorbing barriers, many of Smokey's early concepts have become ingrained in the fabric of modern motorsport. His work arguably laid the intellectual groundwork for these advances, even if the recognition came late. Resistance from sanctioning bodies frustrated Smokey, who often felt forced to work around rules rather than with them. His legacy includes a long line of measures initiated or proposed that challenged authorities who prioritized tradition over progress. These conflicts framed much of his reputation as an outlaw innovator. Yet, it is clear that many of these safety and aerodynamic breakthroughs, now considered standard, began as his radical ideas. His career serves as a reminder that real progress often faces obstacles, but eventually reshapes entire industries. The story of his innovations would only deepen as his personal writings revealed the motivations behind his battles and his break from NASCAR. The Chevelle that changed NASCAR. Among Smokey Yunick's most famous contributions was his work on a series of Chevelles that forced NASCAR to rewrite its inspection rules forever. The well-worn photo of Smokey next to a crooked smiling Chevelle is often described as the 7/8 scale car that changed racing history. Yet, this scale model story is a myth. Genuine measurements show that a true 7/8 scale replica would have been far smaller, nearly 10 inches narrower, over 2 feet shorter, and on a much shorter wheelbase, easily spotted as unusual by anyone walking past. In reality, Smokey's cars were full-sized 1966-bodied Chevelles, sometimes misidentified as 1967 models. The foundation included serious developmental work by Chevrolet's engineering department, but Smokey added meticulous finishing touches that transformed these vehicles into aerodynamic masterpieces. He moved the body roughly 2 inches backward on the chassis, optimizing weight distribution and handling. This subtle shift was one of many aerodynamic tweaks that made a huge difference at speed. He raised and smoothed the floor pan to control airflow beneath the car, lowered the roof and windows slightly, and raked the windshield backward to reduce drag. Further alterations to the fenders and drip rails enhanced the car's efficiency in the air. Smokey even sectioned the front bumper, making it taller and more spoiler-like. These changes sculpted the vehicle's shape without dramatically altering its appearance, an impressive feat of stealth engineering. At speeds exceeding 180 miles per hour, these aerodynamic refinements delivered substantial advantages. Curtis Turner was the first to break the 180 miles per hour qualifying barrier at Daytona, driving one of these Chevelles. The car's performance sidelined many rivals and caught NASCAR's strict attention during inspections. In response, NASCAR tried to regulate by creating its first body templates, using a wrecked Chevelle driven by Bobby Johns. But these templates caused confusion and controversy because Smokey's modifications had blurred the lines of what constituted a stock body. The situation forced NASCAR to mandate standardized roof, hood, and trunk templates for the entire field, rules that have shaped inspection ever since. Smokey openly denied the 7/8 scale car rumor in a 1987 Circle Track magazine article and in his Autobiography. He explained the changes as deliberate and calculated moves rather than simple reductions in scale. This refusal to bend to conventional standards was typical of his broader approach, operating persistently in the gray areas of the rulebook while pushing technological boundaries. One of his cleverest tricks involved fuel capacity limits. By coiling nearly 11 feet of 2-inch tubing in the fuel line, Smokey added roughly 5 extra gallons of fuel capacity without violating written rules. Stories circulate of his offset chassis designs and cars leaving inspections with empty tanks, ready to be refueled for races. Tactics he described as self-defense against competitors he believed were cheating even more aggressively. These engineering feats were clear public proof of what private garage ingenuity could achieve. Smokey's Chevelles weren't just competitive. They rewrote the rule book and expanded the definition of innovation in stock car racing. His influence cascaded well beyond this era, touching NASCAR's regulations and competitive philosophy for years. The story behind his battles and triumphs would soon emerge from the pages he left behind. The Autobiography's Untold Stories. As Smokey Yunick faced the final stages of his life, he poured his thoughts and memories into an extensive autobiography that would become his most personal legacy. Finished as leukemia overtook him, this massive 3-volume boxed set, titled Best Damn Garage in Town, was self-published posthumously around 2001. It includes over 400 photographs and covers his entire career, from his life story to his stock car racing exploits and Indy 500 inventions. The raw, authentic voice preserved in these volumes replaces many invented or exaggerated legends surrounding him. Narrated by John DeLorean. In the audiobook version, the autobiography reveals the complex man behind the myths, a triumphant innovator who also felt exiled from the sport he shaped. His close friendship with Fireball Roberts, a NASCAR legend who died from injuries after a fiery crash in 1964, deeply affected Smokey. That tragedy ignited his passionate safety crusade, which became a defining element of his later years. Smokey's proposals for better, safer fuel cells were repeatedly blocked by NASCAR founder Bill France Sr., creating tensions that led to his eventual departure from the organization around 1970. This break was less a retreat than a statement of principle. His writings reveal a man unwilling to compromise on the safety of drivers, even when it cost him his place in the sport he loved. The autobiography also tackles aspects of his military service, revealing discrepancies between his memories and official records. While Smokey claimed over 50 missions flying a B-17 bomber, archival records show he was drafted as a welder and served actively from 1944 to 1946. Nonetheless, he earned the rank of second lieutenant and received an Air Medal while with the 15th Air Force, affirming a distinguished military record. Within racing, his credentials are undeniable. Smokey accrued 57 Cup Series wins, 2 championships as an owner and crew chief, and was a key technical force in the 1960 Indy 500 victory. He was the first owner to win 2 Daytona 500s in 1961 and 1962, and was inducted into more than 30 Halls of Fame, including the inaugural International Motorsports Hall of Fame in 1990. His autobiography casts new light on many outlaw stories, especially considering the safety battles that ultimately ended his official NASCAR career. Knowing that his safety proposals were repeatedly rejected adds a layer of tragedy to his reputation as a rule breaker. It reframes him less as a rebel for the sake of rebellion, and more as a visionary fighting to save lives and improve the sport. While fans collected tools and engines from the garage sale and museums acquired his prototypes, the book remains the most complete record of his mind and motivations. It offers unparalleled insight into the risks he took, the ideas he championed, and the losses he endured. The autobiography stands as a testament to a man who changed racing through innovation and conviction. As the physical remnants of his garage faded, buildings sold off and eventually destroyed by fire, the pages of his autobiography endured, keeping Smokey's voice alive. This written legacy ensured that his story and the truth behind his innovations would remain accessible and unfiltered. The words he left behind deepened the understanding of a man who was not simply an outlaw mechanic, but a complex individual driven by passion, purpose, and a desire for progress. Without them, much of Smokey's story would be lost to myth. Legacy beyond the garage. When Smokey Yunick's last garage building burned in 2011, it marked the end of an era, but his true legacy had already escaped those walls. The contents of his shop had been scattered through public sales, auctions, and donations, placing his groundbreaking inventions and everyday tools into the hands of fans, collectors, and museums. The real value wasn't locked behind glass, but lived on in workshops, collections, and the minds of those who continue to study and honor his work. One of the most visible relics of Smokey's legacy is the running hot vapor Fiero donated to the Don Garlits Museum of Drag Racing. This car, driving and performing as originally engineered, serves as a living testament to his innovative approach to fuel efficiency and power. Another prototype engine, reportedly on long-term loan to the Smithsonian Institution, guarantees his work is preserved where it can inspire future generations. Smokey's family continues to safeguard 4 prototype engines, while original garage tools and even a shop door remain in the hands of collectors. These items embody the spirit of a man who valued hands-on innovation, tools that were meant for work, not just display. The scattered pieces of Smokey's shop form a mosaic of influence that extends far beyond a single physical location. His footprints are most evident in the rules he forced the sport to change. The slightly shifted Chevelle foundations led NASCAR to create the now standardized body templates. These templates fundamentally transformed the inspection process, leveling the playing field and codifying methods to regulate car shapes for fairness and safety. Permanent adoption of aerodynamic wings and pneumatic air jacks, both debuted by Smokey decades before their mainstream use, highlight how his ideas eventually became accepted wisdom. What was once radical and banned now underpins the technology and safety protocols of major racing series worldwide. He was not just ahead of his time, he shaped the time that followed. The tire wall safety concept he patented in the 80s marked another silent victory. Though initially ignored, it laid the intellectual groundwork for modern, safer barriers that now save lives at racetracks worldwide. Many drivers owe their survival to innovations first proposed by Smokey, a legacy measured not just in speed records, but in human lives protected. His hot vapor patents, finally entering the public domain in 2003, continue to draw interest from engineers exploring new ways to maximize thermal efficiency. This ongoing influence reinforces how ahead of his time Smokey was, creating technology decades before the industry was ready to act. More than engines and patents, Smokey's inventions and the philosophy behind them remain a challenge to the racing world, to embrace bold ideas and rethink limits. His story is a call to innovators everywhere to push the boundaries of what's possible, even when faced with resistance. Ultimately, Smokey Yunick's legacy is not confined to what survived the fire or crossed auction blocks. It lives in every rule rewritten, every safer barrier installed, and every engineer inspired to think beyond the ordinary. His magic is scattered but undeniably powerful, continuing to influence motorsports and engineering today. Smokey Yunick's garage may be gone, but the innovations, stories, and spirit he left behind are far from forgotten. From radical engines to safety breakthroughs, his legacy reshaped motorsports in more ways than anyone imagined. If you enjoyed uncovering the truth behind his legendary workshop, be sure to like and subscribe for more stories that drive history forward.